Okay, look, I am aware I am very late to this, but I've been meaning to discuss my thoughts on this film ever since I watched it, and there's no better time than now. Argylle is the 2024 release by Matthew Vaughn, and it's a spy action comedy starring a cast of people I'd say I'm a pretty huge fan of. I didn't really have many expectations going into the film. I chose to watch it on a whim because I'd seen the trailers a couple times and what I saw was quite intriguing. So when myself and a friend watched the film in cinemas on release day, we ended up quite enjoying ourselves. I never really found myself bored throughout the 2 hour and 20-minute duration of the film, as there was never really a dull moment for me. Pacing was good, characters were really interesting, and the plot twists were unexpected and had me at the edge of my seat. Overall, a very fun time. However, it seems that there is a very small minority that actually agrees with me on this, with the film absolutely tanking at the box office, averaging a 2.5 on Letterboxd, with a 32% score on Rotten Tomatoes. People seem to genuinely dislike the movie, and I don't really understand why. I know films are subjective, but I felt that the overwhelming majority of reviews being negative were being overly critical, perhaps people forming their opinions based on what everyone else was saying and hopping on the hate train, maybe not giving the film a fair chance. I also kind of felt that this was the case for another movie that came out this year, but I think that's a topic for another video. I also saw that a lot of people were quick to hate on this film because it was disappointing for them as a Matthew Vaughn film, comparing it to Kick-Ass or The Kingsman. I'm someone who hasn't seen either of those. I know, it's a crime. But I feel like this was ideal for me because I didn't have any preconceived notions about what to expect. At the end of the day, this is an entirely new story and it needs to be treated as such, and so having an open mind is optimal. Obviously the film isn't going to meet the quote-unquote standards that these previous titles may have met, and that's okay. Just because the film doesn't tightly fit into a box doesn't automatically take away any artistic value that the film has to offer. And if anything, having seen this film has made me want to get into more of Matthew Vaughn's works, and if it can have that kind of effect on me, I feel like the film did its job well. Anyway, I wanted to take this time to see what some of the main arguments are for disliking this movie, and kind of break down why I feel like these arguments aren't as strong as they seem, coming from someone who greatly enjoyed the film. Also, spoiler warning from this point onwards in case anyone is actually planning to watch the film. Okay, so a quick recap of what happens in the film. It is centered around Ellie Conway, a spy novelist grappling with writer's block until she encounters Aidan Wilde, a real-life spy who informs her that the novels accurately predict the actions of a nefarious organization called the Division. As Ellie delves deeper into the mystery, she uncovers her true identity as Agent Rachel Kyle, who was captured and brainwashed by the Division 5 years earlier, and made to believe that the mom from Home Alone and Walter White were her parents. With Aidan's help, Rachel goes on a quest to thwart the Division's plans and unearth the truth behind her past. The film's conclusion sees Rachel embracing her true self and reclaiming her agency as she publishes her final Argylle novel, marking the culmination of her journey from novelist to real-life hero. Pretty interesting, right? So what did people hate about the film? Well, okay, so unfamiliarity is always hit or miss, and with Argylle being new property, it was bound to be at a significant risk of failing, and evidently it did. But I can't say I agree with this point. While sure, to some degree we can correlate Argylle's underperformance to the fact that it was unfamiliar territory, but this is the 21st century where audiences are actively seeking out for something new. Argylle's status as a new property allows it to break away from the constraints of existing franchises and offer something innovative and exciting to viewers. In a world saturated with sequels, reboots and adaptations, the prospect of a new and original film like Argylle contributes to the diversity of the cinematic landscape. And this reigns true for every original concept, but when it comes to Argylle it becomes a negative? I feel like the film set out to achieve what it wanted to do, which was to be a silly, sort of unserious spy comedy, and so to say it was bad because of its newness just feels a bit misinformed and a baseless reason to hate on a film that's already under fire. After all, correlation does not equal causation. While looking at reviews online, I often saw a lot of people were commenting on the fact that Argylle lacked a compelling hook and was too ambitious for its own good, being a bit convoluted at times and having a concept that's a little difficult to grasp. But I feel like everyone sort of missed the part where this movie isn't supposed to be taken seriously. Sure, there was one too many plot twists and it was a tad cheesy at times, but it was so ridiculously stupid to the point where it was genuinely really enjoyable. I feel like Argylle revels in its own absurdity, offering a unique and memorable viewing experience. It embraces its quirkiness as a deliberate stylistic choice rather than a flaw, and I feel like a lot of people are choosing to ignore this. Argylle had an estimated budget of around 200 million US dollars, which is a significant amount, and yes, it is apparent that it doesn't really translate too well. The green screening looks very odd at times, and the cat being very obviously CGI'd like halfway through the movie was quite disorientating. However, adding on to the last point about the movie not taking itself seriously, it kind of works in this context. This is a dumb spy movie, and it's being paired with dumb visual effects, and that's kind of the charm of it for me. The over-the-top visual effects serve to enhance the film's campy appeal, and this is enough for me to justify its existence. I kind of touched on this earlier, but I feel like a lot of people are slandering the film simply because, from the get-go, reviews were quite negative, and because of word of mouth, everyone is agreeing with the majority opinion, because psychologically, we are inclined to do so. But to be completely honest, if this is the reason you're hating the movie, or at least the idea of hating it was planted in your head from seeing earlier reviews, then I'm sorry, but I can't take your opinion that seriously. I know it's easy to follow the crowd when it comes to films. I've been guilty of this too, but being able to separate yourself from that and form your own opinion on a film, going in with an open mind, should be standard, and I feel like if a lot of people did this with Argylle, they'd end up finding that hey, this film is not as bad as people claim. This is one point that I actually just cannot wrap my head around as much as I try to. What exactly about this film was boring? There was constantly something going on, and even scenes that are excessively silly were still very entertaining to watch. Like genuinely, you're telling me that the ice skating scene was a chore to sit through? Or even the Leona Lewis dance scene? Or when they finally revealed the real Agent Argylle to be Ellie Conway herself, Agent R. Kyle? Did we watch the same film? Sure, the film was also filled with quite a few cliches, but I feel like the various plot twists, the aforementioned scenes, and the stellar performances from the cast, especially Sam Rockwell and Bryce Dallas Howard, completely made up for it. Also, speaking of Bryce Dallas Howard, I think she's so underrated as an actress. I think she was really great in Jurassic World and Nosedive, so it was really nice to see her as the lead role for this film because her range is amazing. I'm sure there's plenty of other things I missed out, but these were the main arguments people had for slating this film, and I don't want this video to be any longer than it needs to be. A point I kind of want to end off on though, is when did we get so critical of movies? While yes, what makes up a good movie is attributed to a good plot, character development, cinematography, or whatever else, and you can have your opinions on all of that on this movie specifically. But I feel like everyone overlooks their overall enjoyment for films, which overrules all of this and is ultimately what matters the most. I can think of many examples where some highly regarded films that supposedly succeed in terms of camera work and writing, I never really found myself enjoying all that much, despite objectively being well made. And also vice versa. Films that are noticeably cheap and disingenuous I end up enjoying in a so bad it's good kind of way. Is Argylle the best movie in the world? Not by a long shot. But it was still the most fun I've ever had watching a film in cinemas. It was a mess at times, and I do have my own bones to pick with the film, but it's hard for me to sit here with a straight face and agree with what everyone else is saying. This was a good movie, and I couldn't recommend it more. Anyway, with all that said, what are your thoughts on this film? Did you enjoy it as much as I did, or do you think I'm way too easily impressed? And to be fair, you wouldn't be wrong. Well, whatever it may be, leave your thoughts down in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.